Well, good morning and welcome. We are delighted to be together. There's a gentleman in the Bible who made a rather astounding statement, and I want to read it to you. It's found in the Lamentations of Jeremiah in chapter 3, verse 22. And the Bible says, "It is because of the Lord's loving kindness that we are not destroyed, for his loving pity never ends. It is new every morning." And then he says this, "He is so very faithful." The Message, or the Amplified, says, "Great and beyond measure is her faithfulness." Now that is an astounding statement, but it is even more astounding when you consider who said it. Because the young man that said this, as a young man, he responded to the call of God on his life, and he stepped into a prophetic mantle and a prophetic role, and he ended up being severely criticized most of his life, and based on the fact that he just kept repeating what God was saying. And ultimately that gets you in trouble anyway. And so he was heavily criticized, and he lived a very difficult life in a difficult time, in a difficult place. He witnessed the destruction of his city and pretty much his nation, and he lost virtually all that he had. And yet his declaration is, after all of that, you, God, are so very faithful. Now, you might take a look at that and say, how could somebody say something like that? Well, he's not the only one. David said virtually the same thing in Psalm 36:5. David said, "You, God, are as faithful as the sky is high." Now, here is a young man, another young man, who suffers an extreme amount of cruelty from his father, from his brothers, from the king, who is the highest authority in his life. And anytime you suffer cruelty and damage from an authority figure, it really does a double whammy on you. He also suffered cruelty from his wife, from his sons, from his own associates, and also from his enemies. And yet, David declares, "God, you are faithful as the sky is high." Now, I would say to you and submit to you that there probably are a good number of people in our world today who would not agree with these two men, who would not say that God is faithful. And there are a couple of reasons why that is the case. And one of the reasons is because we tend to evaluate and estimate, and we tend to measure and quantify the faithfulness of God based on what he could have done. In other words, hey, God, you're all powerful, you're almighty, you're all glorious, you're all this and all that. You could have averted that tragedy. You could have avoided that disaster. You could have stopped the tornado. You could have diverted the hurricane. You could have done that, but you didn't do it. Therefore, because you did not do that, you are not faithful. And so people measure God on what they think he could have done in any given situation. And if it doesn't match what we think, then we deem him as unfaithful. And there's also another reason. Because men, tend to judge God based on, in his faithfulness, based on what they would have done. Not just what he could have done, but what we would have done. Now, if we were in that situation, we would have done this. In fact, God, we would have done better, we would have done more, we would have done different than you. And because we would have done things differently than you, because we tend to know more than you do, then we judge you as unfaithful because of that. Now, I want to just give you today just some brief reminders about the faithfulness of God. And the first one is this. When you describe the faithfulness of God, it is mysterious. In other words, we can't figure it out. In fact, Paul told the Roman church that all of God's ways are past finding out, so don't even try. Then he told the Corinthian church, on our best day in 1 Corinthians 13, we are seeing through a mirror darkly. We are seeing dimly. At our best, we can't see it all. When we look at this tapestry that we call life and the panels of the tapestry, there are two sides, there are two panels, there's a front and a back. Our view tends to be from the back. That is the predominant primary view of man. We see the back of the tapestry, God sees the front. And there are two totally different views. When we consider life, life has its seen side and its unseen side. We tend to camp out in the seen side. We tend to do much better with what we can see, not so good with what we can't see. But in the midst of all of that, there is a mysterious part, like all of God, to His faithfulness. There are things that we do not understand about His faithfulness. Here's what Paul told the Corinthian church. 1 Corinthians 2:16. For certainly the man of the world, and I would say that would be pretty much all of us, the man of the world has never been one to know the Lord's thoughts or to discuss them with Him. In other words, we don't know what He's up to. Even when we think we do, we don't. His faithfulness is extremely mysterious. And because of that, we tend to deem it unfaithful when actually God is being faithful, simply because it is mysterious. Secondly, the second reminder about the faithfulness of God is this. It is righteous. Now, don't be afraid of the word, because that word is just an elongation of the word right. And here is a great example of what is righteous or right that you will find in Matthew chapter 20. This is about the parable of the vineyard, and this is the owner of the vineyard who represents God, who is speaking to all of the workers in the vineyard, and he is speaking to them, and this is what he says in Matthew 20, verse number 7, whatever is right, that you will receive. Wow, what a pledge, what a promise, what a guarantee from God. Whatever is right, that's what you're going to get. Or you can put it or turn it around the other way and say, you are going to receive only that which is right. In other words, that's God's pledge, that's His promise to us. So the owner of the vineyard says, guess what? The only thing you're ever going to get is right. And you say, well, Pastor Buddy, what is the end of the parable? You would think that the end of the parable was, and they all lived happily ever after. But that is not the end of the parable. Because when the owner gave to the workers what was right, they complained. Because they thought what was right was wrong. And God did right, and they interpreted it as wrong. And so when the owner gave them what was right, they said that is wrong. Now, this is an amazing thing. That made the owner extremely unpopular. Now, the owner is not bothered about popularity. We live in a world where we are geared, and a culture that is geared toward likes, thumbs ups, friends, followers, subscribers, and little red hearts. That's what drives culture. How many thumbs up can I get? How many likes can I get? How many hearts can I get? God is simply free from all of that. He doesn't live under that. And so because of that, God is willing to do what is right, even if he looks wrong in doing it. And he's willing to do good and will only do good, even if it looks wrong or we interpret it as wrong or it seems wrong. This is how amazing he is. This is why he is righteous. Because no matter what he does, it's good and it's right, even if it seems wrong. Now, in our culture, parents don't want to be righteous. They want to be popular. Politicians don't want to be right. They want to be popular. We even have a poll in this country that I didn't even know about. A poll for the Supreme Court. I didn't realize this. There is a poll that's taken all the time, apparently, where people can judge the popularity of the Supreme Court. Now, I want to ask you, why? If you're a judge, you do not live off of popularity. You are to judge righteous judgments and to do what is right according to the Constitution, according to the law of the land, according to law and order, and according to what is the righteous thing to do, regardless of whether it's popular or not. God is not tied to any of that. He is faithful even when he looks bad. And he's willing to look bad in order to be good. And the third thing, God's faithfulness is misjudged. In fact, God is the most misjudged being ever. And if you want to know how you can tell, just open the Bible. And you will find not only an amazing God in there, but you will also find a lot of false images of God as well. Because you see, we not only have been given the ability to choose, but we have also been given the ability to judge. That means that we can draw a conclusion. We can sum things up. We can form a judgment. And when we form a judgment, that then becomes something more back to us. Let me show you. In the Old Testament, the second commandment warned us, whatever you do, don't make any false images of God. Don't create a false image of God, because if you do, you will serve the image rather than the God. In other words, because we have the power to judge, we can make good judgments or we can make bad judgments. We can make accurate or inaccurate judgments. And whatever we judge and however we judge then becomes the standard for us. Now, in the New Testament, Jesus gave us two very clear warnings when it came to judging. Most things that people do not understand. The first one is in John 7:24. Jesus said, "Do not judge according to appearance." So never make a judgment by the way you feel, by according to what you see, based on your senses, based on your own opinion. We are to always judge based on truth and not on how we feel or our senses. But here's the rest of the verse. But judge with proper judgment. Now, the second warning is even more amazing. Jesus said, Matthew 7:2, you'll receive the same judgment you give. Wow. So whatever you deal out will be dealt out to you. So whenever I make a judgment, whether it's about God or about someone or about an event or something in my life, whenever I make a judgment, it then comes back to me as an image. I now have an image. And that image is either going to be a false image because I have misinterpreted, or it's going to be a true image because I have seen according to the truth. Let me give you a great example of how this works. In Hebrews chapter 11, there is Sarah. From the Old Testament, this is the hall of faith. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse number 11, this is how it describes Sarah. Through faith, Sarah also received strength to be with child. Now, this woman is over about 90 years old. She received strength to be with child and was delivered of a child when she was past age. Now watch, because she judged God faithful who had promised. She judged it. Now watch. She made a judgment of God when there was no evidence of His faithfulness. She judged Him faithful when there was no evidence whatsoever to demonstrate His faithfulness. And because she judged Him faithful when there was no evidence, she ended up seeing Him faithful. If she had judged Him unfaithful, she would have seen Him as unfaithful, because she would have gotten what she judged. Her image then would have been, that's an unfaithful God. Wow. People misjudge God all the time. They have images of God that are false. And they get those images because they've made a judgment about something. I was really disturbed by some responses that I saw on social media regarding our videos. And I said to the Lord, how is it that someone can be that angry, oftentimes at something they don't even believe exists? That's always been a stumper for me. How can you be so angry at something you swear doesn't even exist? But how can you be so hateful? And this is not personal, because you and I are not born that way. In fact, we're not born revengeful or hateful or angry or anything. Well, maybe. Something has to happen to someone. They have to make a judgment somewhere that then forms an image that they then react to and live with because of what has happened. Something has happened. What do you suppose it is? Well, I think that it might be something like this. In 1 Kings 22, verse 34, someone, because it's always someone, someone randomly shot an arrow that struck Israel's king between the joints in his armor. Turn around and get me out of the battle, the king told his chariot driver. I've been hit. While the battle raged all that day, the king stood propped up in the chariot, but that evening he died. These two verses are a microcosm of life. Let me show you what I mean. First of all, he took a hit. You see, the enemy wants to make sure that everybody takes a hit. because he is out to kill and destroy. He has put a hit out on you, and he's put a hit out on you, and put a hit out on me. And he wants to make sure that at some point in my life, I take a hit. The enemy wants me to take a hit. Because when I do, it will take me out of the battle, and it will also give me a golden opportunity to form a judgment. I'm going to have an interpretation, I'm going to form a judgment, and I'm going to then get an image. Maybe it's something that God didn't do that you thought he should have. And then I now have an image. This man took a hit. Secondly, he never saw it coming. The biggest hits in life are the ones we don't see coming. I would have never thought that would have happened. I wouldn't have dreamed that someone would have done that. Trust me, the biggest hits are the ones that you don't see coming. He never saw this. Now, he's already got his armor on, and so he feels like that he's fairly protected, and that whatever hit him is unfair, because he took due diligence to put his armor on, and yet he still took a hit. He never saw it coming. The biggest hits are the ones that we don't see coming. And thirdly, it only took one. You see, the enemy knows it only takes one hit to take me out of the battle. One hit to remove me. One hit for me to cry, get me out of here. I check out. And so if I've taken a hit and I'm attributing that to God, then I am backing out and backing away. I want nothing more to do with him. It only took one hit. Something has to happen to someone in order for there to be a false image of God. Something happens somewhere. For instance, in Matthew 25, verse 24, listen to what this man says to the master. I can tell you, after we've read this verse, you should be able to look at that and say, there's a story behind this. Here is his response to the master when he comes to accountability. I knew you were a very hard man. You harvest what you did not plant, and you gather crops where you did not put any seed. Now, I want to tell you, that is not a natural, normal response from a person toward God. That is not the way we come into this world. This man knows something because something has happened to this man. He has taken a hit somewhere. Something has occurred, and he now has an image. Look what he says. I knew you were. Based on what? Based on the image that he now has from forming a judgment from something that has happened. I knew you were a very hard man. You harvest what you did not plant. You gather crops where you did not put any seed. He's carrying a false image of God, and he ends up losing his destiny because of it. Let me ask you, have you taken a hit? And let me just say, by some miracle, if you're still tuned in by now, if you have not turned this off yet, Have you taken a hit? Have you got a false image? At the end of the ages, John gets a glimpse. And this is what he sees. In Revelation 19, verse 11, he said, I saw heaven standing open. There in front of me was a white horse. Its rider is called what? Faithful and True. Those go together. When he judges or makes war, he is always fair. Always fair. You see, in God, whatever is right, that's what I receive. When Mary and Martha came to Jesus, they both said the same thing to him after their brother died. If you had been here, it wouldn't have happened. Sound familiar? Yeah. Well, how did they end up seeing the faithfulness of God? Because they were willing to drop that image, to break that image. The most courageous thing that you can ever do is to judge God faithful when there is absolutely no evidence of his faithfulness at all. And the most cowardly thing that you can ever do is to judge God unfaithful when there is so much evidence that he seems to be unfaithful. All through the Scripture, people find themselves breaking images in order to experience God. Gideon tore down images in order to encounter the power of God. I want to encourage you today. Have you misjudged God? Think about it. Whatever happened, break that image and come to him. You'll discover he's incredibly faithful. Let's pray. Father, I thank you. I thank you that whatever is right, that's what we have in you. That's what we find in you. And all that seems so wrong, in your mystery, in your power, and in your grace and in your mercy, you make right. And I thank you today that your faithfulness reaches to the clouds, that you are so very faithful. I pray for those who need to taste your faithfulness today, who need to let go of what's in their hand, what's in their soul, and make room. Do what Sarah did. Judge him faithful today. And watch him work. In Jesus' name.